Good afternoon, everyone. And guys, thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Hope Gibbs, and this is Author Take the Wheel. It's our December bonus episode. And today we are joined by two of my new favorite authors, Jenny Hale. Hello, Jenny, and Lindsay Gibson.
Hi there.
And we are going to discuss not only their journeys of becoming writers and becoming published authors, but we're going to discuss their Christmas books that they have been talking to us about this week on our Facebook page, both The Christmas Promise and Meet Me at Christmas. So hello, ladies.
Hi.
Hi.
So before we get started, I like to give everyone a little bit of your background, and so they know kind of who we're talking to today. So Jenny Hale is the USA Today Amazon International best-selling author with over 1 million books sold. Her books have been published worldwide and have been adapted for television, appearing on the Hallmark Channel as part of their famous Christmas lineup. Her novels have been highlighted in publications such as Oprah Magazine's 19 Dreamy Summer Romance to Whisk You Away, and in Southern Living's 30 Christmas Novels to Start Reading Now. She is also the founder and director of Harpeth Road Press. In between having her nose in a book and writing her next novel, she is running around Nashville, taking photos, getting into mischief with her husband, 2 kids, and their Labradoodle. Hello, Jenny.
Hi.
Okay, so now Lindsay, let's go for Lindsay. So Lindsay Gibson's first book, her memoir, Just Be, How My Stillborn Son Taught Me to Surrender, won the Book Excellent Finalist Award in 2018. She has been featured in Elephant Journal, Green Child Magazine, and Self Magazine. Her debut romantic fiction novel, The Christmas Promise, is set in a charming New England town at the holidays. It was a #1 release in both eBook and Christmas category and paperback for contemporary Christian romance. The Christmas Promise also received a stunning Kirkus review and has also been included in the list of over 50 most read Kindle Unlimited Christmas romance books. Lindsay is at work on her next novel, and when she's not writing, she spends her days working on her blog, chasing her 3 daughters around, and hanging out with her husband. So before we get into the questions, because we've got so many questions, if you have a question out there, please let me know and we will get to it. Just to remember to include your name. So let's talk about these books. So before we get into talking about the characters of Stella and Charlotte, Jenny, can you give us a brief synopsis of Meet Me at Christmas?
Yeah, so Stella is our main character, and she's a travel researcher. She works, I believe it's Brain Science magazine. We changed it a few times, so I have to get back into it and look. But she is jet setting all over Europe, US, writing these articles for her magazine. And her mother calls her home early for Christmas because it's their first Christmas without her dad, because they'd lost her dad. And so, of course, she drops everything and goes back home. But when she gets there, she doesn't expect to see the guy she left behind. She actually married him at 18. They were childhood sweethearts. She married him, and I'm not going to give anything away, but she had to leave. Something happened in her life, and she had to leave. And so she left, and that's when she went off to college, and then was this travel researcher. And he is not happy, that she's left. So he joins the army. And what she doesn't realize is she gets transferred. She gets all her work transferred to come home early for her mom. And she goes to Vanderbilt Hospital in Nashville to finish out her research. And when she gets there, her subject is him. He's there. And I got to look up his name. What happens when
his name is Henry.
Thank you. Okay. What happens when I write a book, because I literally turn in a book on Tuesday and start writing the next one on Wednesday, and I have to make myself forget the whole thing, or it'll be in my next book. So I'm always like, who is it again? I have to look up. I have a whole long list of all of my guys. But anyway, she doesn't expect to see Henry, and Henry is there. And not only is he there, but he had an accident in the army, and he can't remember anything from his childhood on. And so as he works with her and she's observing him, he confides in her that when he's with her, he starts to remember his life. And she is sort of stuck in this conundrum of he wants to spend all this time with her because he feels like he is remembering when he's around her. But she knows if he remembers few things, he'll remember everything. And then he'll remember why she left. And so in the midst of that, she's always loved him and he's always loved her. And they're trying to figure out how to move past that.
And as I told you, I devoured this book. I devoured both books, actually, both of them basically in one day. Loved it, but we're going to get back to that. But Lindsay, can you give us a quick synopsis of The Christmas Promise?
Yep. So Charlotte is my main character, and she's an artist. Actually, she's in the beginning of the book, she's an art buyer for the well-known Wallace Gallery of Boston. And she starts out in the book sort of a mess where her boss, Troy, who I really enjoyed writing Troy because he's quirky, he's funny, we had to even tone him down a little bit because he got to be a little much, but he's so much fun. But he sent her to her first auction without him to bid for Boston Fine Arts' charity piece for their holiday gala. She had been going to auctions prior with him, but now she was sent out on her own. She was super nervous because she didn't want to let him down. She already had a rough year. She broke up with her boyfriend, Logan, a year before that, and she just wanted this to go right. And she ended up being super late to it, and all the other pieces were already bid on. She didn't even get to do the preview, and she was starving. And she went out to grab something quick from their, treats that they had out in the lobby. And one painting caught her eye, and it was the last one left. And she didn't want to go back empty-handed, but she knew her boss may not like it because it seemed too cliche. And she bought it anyway because she was drawn to it. So now she's got this piece that she brings to him, and she's convinced she's going to lose her job, that she totally bombed it. And it turns out to be opposite, where Troy loved it. He was fascinated by it, just like she was, but there was no information on it. It wasn't a well-known artist. It had only the date on the back, and he wanted more. He wanted to see if they could figure out at least, where this, painting came from or whatever. So he sent her on a mission to go find it, and they were able to figure out that where the painting was drawn from, and that is a little coastal town in New Hampshire. It's actually a real town. It's called Newcastle, New Hampshire, and it's stunning when you go there. It's just this tiny, there's like 800 people that live there. It's off of Portsmouth, New Hampshire. And the times that I've been there, I remember saying to myself, I've got to write a book about this place, and it happened to be my debut. And she finds herself off this little island and trying to figure out who painted this. She had no hope. She was like, there's no way I'm going to figure this out. I'm just going to go and appease my boss and see if I can find something. And she uncovers a lot more when she gets there. She ends up learning about herself. She ends up, of course, meeting Aiden, who is the son of the innkeeper where she's staying. And of course, he's ruggedly handsome. And she, romance is not in her mind, but the two of them came together, and he helped her through this mystery. And it was so much fun writing the flashback scenes where the reader is able to be taken along through the painting. And here's Charlotte in present time trying to figure this out as well. And a lot of the history that I wrote in this book was so much fun because a lot of it's real history, like the Navy port and things like that from Portsmouth. So she uncovers much more for her boss than she went there for. So
and again, I absolutely adored the book, and I loved that town. And Troy sends her on a mission, but it's also kind of like a little quaint vacation, because I think deep down Troy knew she needed something, because there was something missing for her for a while. She kind of been not beaten down literally, but her ex-boyfriend really never believed in her as being an artist, and she kind of lost that about her.
Yeah, and he knew that, and that gets uncovered as you read along. But he knew, like, she needed a timeout, and she got one.
Well, we've got a lot of comments. Grace Salmon said, "Too excited. Thank you guys for being with us. We have a person who also says, welcome ladies. And Annie McDonald, she asked a really good question. She said, what made you decide to write a holiday book? Jenny, can you start us out with this? Because you've not written just one, you've written at least 10 holiday books.
A lot. I've lost track.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I first wrote my very first novel, it's actually retitled Coming Home for Christmas. That was one of the Hallmark movies. But it was originally titled Flip for You, and it just happened to be in December. And my publisher at the time, who has a really great eye for marketing, said, let's up the Christmas in this. Let's sell this as a Christmas novel. And so we did. I mean, I just added in all the Christmas to it. And so then, when you get on a publishing schedule, the next big selling period is summer. So you go from Christmas to doing your book two is in summer, and then you're back around to Christmas. So I just started doing Christmas and summer. And then I continued on with that the whole way through. And I've only written, I think, 2 books out of my 23 are not set in Christmas or summer.
And Lindsay, what about you? Because this is your debut for fiction.
Yep. The New England is just stunning during fall and then Christmas. We're known for the things you see in Hallmark movies, the horse-drawn carriages and the snow, things like that, the picturesque towns that a lot of these movies are based off. So I was like, I knew I had to get into that because, spending 40 years in New England, I knew so much about it, and I knew that's what I wanted to write because the holidays are just so spectacular up there. I just love it. So that was the biggest draw with me with that. And when I started thinking about my plot in Ruby Ring, I love Ruby Rings. And I just thought Ruby Ring Christmas, it just went together in my mind. So instead, I actually started writing this book as more of a summer book. And then I was like, this doesn't feel right. And so I actually X'd all that out and rewrote it because Christmas just felt much more natural with the storyline.
And speaking of the Ruby Ring, both of your books have a piece of jewelry that it adds so much. Both of them have like a mystery component. With Jenny, it's a necklace. And with Lindsay's book, it's a ring. How did you guys come up with that? Because I'm a writer and I love, new, interesting twists. And I never would have thought of something like that.
I have a funny story for how I came up with it. So when I started Harper Thread Press, as you know, as a fellow author, I've got enough work with writing my books. And now I'm publishing. I think we've got like 9 books coming in the next year. And so I was scrounging through my old manuscripts, and I found an abandoned manuscript it was like the second book I'd ever written in my life. And I started to look at it thinking, can I salvage this and like make it something so that I don't have to start from scratch? And it was a disaster. There's no way. There's a reason it wasn't contracted. But there was this one moment where this girl bumps into something and gets coffee all over her. And so I was like, let's just throw that in because that's kind of fun. I like that. So I took that one line and put it in my new book. And that's how it happens. This girl bumps into her at the airport, spills coffee all over her, and goes, "Oh, your necklace, you almost lost your necklace," and gives her a necklace. And the necklace just like magically appeared in my mind when I wrote this into my new book. And it took me until about midway to really know what the necklace was. I was about midway through the book just pantsing it all the way. And I think one of my editors actually honed that in a little bit. And I'm not going to give away what she said because there's a twist to what it is at the end. And I wasn't quite dialed in with it. I just sort of threw it like spaghetti against a wall and then and see what sticks. And then my editor was like, well, hold on, you can keep this, but why don't you have this happen at the end? And that's how I drove it home.
Well, I loved it. And Lindsay, what about you? Tell us about this ruby ring that appears very prominently in this painting.
I didn't know what to do with the ruby ring at first, so I kind of held it off for a while. I knew my character was going to be a painter, so I already knew that. And I already knew the ring. I wanted to have the ring be discovered somehow, but I didn't know how to get the ring into in the beginning of the story. And it literally was as simple as, okay, she's an artist. I want to have this ruby ring in here. How could I do it? It could be on the painting. And I sort of just went from there and then developed it as I wrote my first draft. And then, of course, going through edits, deepened it even more. So there wasn't some just big epiphany with it. I just sort of threw it in and played around with it, and away we went. And I do love ruby rings, so I knew I had to get it in there.
Well, I love that. And I also love the towns that you set your books in. Jenny, you set your book in Leapers Fork, which is about maybe 20 minutes from my house. I've been to Leapers Fork many times. And so for me as a reader, I could visualize everything you were talking about. Tell me a little bit about this town that you set your book in.
Leapers Fork is the smallest town on the planet. I think it's like, a 1 minute walk in its entirety, maybe that downtown area. But anytime my friends come to visit, I always take them to Leapers Fork because I'm like, you will never see anything like this town. It's just so amazing. And I had to build it up. I mean, you can tell when you read the book, I had to build it up just to have enough in it. And it has this really eclectic, unique parade at Christmas. We're actually going to try to go to it. It's in a couple of days, and we're going to try and see if we can go to it. It got rained out, I think, last weekend, so they rescheduled it. I mean, I think there are like goats and stuff in this parade, but because it's out in the countryside. But anyway, I had to up it a little bit to make it. I had to add some stuff to that parade, so it's on a smaller scale than what I wrote, I think. But anyway, we're going to try to go. But the town is just this little main street. I feel like some of the little buildings should have saloon doors, those swinging saloon doors on them, and it's just super, super Southern and lovely. Sorry, my dog. Someone delivered something, I think, to the front door.
No worries at all. Yes, and we had Annie ask what state. That would be the state of Tennessee. So and as both of these books are romance and Christmas, but we have a north and a southern kind of experience, but they both have that same component that I loved, that this isn't just a simple romance. You have a protagonist that really is going through things and are trying to find themselves. Especially, I felt like Charlotte was going through a lot. Lindsay was just trying to figure out who she is, but it's not a man who ends up saving her in the end. It's really her finding herself, which is what I loved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love writing strong female characters, and I want to always write my females to come to on their own, because I feel like that's better, and a part of me was really in there, and coming to herself as an artist, coming to myself as a writer. So that was an easy pull for me with creating that part of Charlotte. Yes, the breakup was hard, but it was more than that. And she sort of just lost touch with her passions and who she really, what really drew her to want to paint in the first place, and her talents and all those things. And her ex did not help any of that, but she, and I think she blamed him for the longest time of that's why I don't do what I do. But then as she starts to uncover not only just parts of this painting, but learning about herself, and then being in Seabreeze, just having that time away helped her to think for the first time about herself. And I was really drawn to her just personally, because saying, I am an artist and this is who I am. It's like, I can finally say I'm a writer, and that was hard for me. So, yeah.
And then Jenny, we also have secondary characters, and in your book, one of my favorite characters was not around. It's her father. It's Stella's father, Pop, who had passed away. And what I loved about your book is that you would put his voice in there in times of need. It's her kind of coming back, and some of his words, like I screenshotted several of your quotes, because I'm like, that is just the most beautiful saying. Did you come up with all of those sayings, or were they things you've heard through your life?
I came up with them, but I think when I write my novels, I mean, the way Lindsay was talking about how I think there's so much of us in these characters too, that, things that we've experienced, people, that have the naysayers, have, given us perspective of ourselves. And until we actually really see ourselves for who we are and ignore everyone else, we're not really there yet. And I think some of those things come to me because they're things I tell myself, they're things that we should all tell each other, and so I come up with them. I don't know how, I just do. And like I said, I think it's based in my own emotion, and that my hope for everyone is that they find that person. Like, who are you? Who are you outside of your circles? Just when you're alone in your house by yourself, who are you? And so I think Pop sort of is a really strong observer of them because he's not there. So he's observing her and giving her his wisdom in one-liners, that's all she can get from him. And so that's sort of how I came up with it.
Well, before we move on, because I want to talk to you guys a little bit about your journeys of being a published author, and for Lindsay, a debut author, which is so exciting. Lindsay, what do you want the audience to take away from The Christmas Promise? What do you want them to feel after they read this book?
I want them to know it's never too late to discover yourself. It's never too late to try something new or try something old that you forgot about yourself, or you've put behind, maybe motherhood or another career or anything like that. But it's never too late to chase your dreams. It doesn't matter when or how, but each day you can try. So that's what I took away from Charlotte. And that's what I want my readers to always have in the back of their head after they read this, is that I can do this too. Whatever I love and all of my talents and my passions and who I am, there's a way.
And as a debut author, was it hard to say goodbye to Charlotte?
I think it's going to be hard for every single one of my characters. I had to say goodbye for the second book when we just finished copy edits on book 2, and I was like, I love her. And I same thing with Charlotte. I think it's always hard because you really get drawn to them after you've not only read the manuscript 487 times, but while you're writing it and while you're editing it, you really the characters just become you, I feel like. So yeah, it's hard to say goodbye. I want to keep her with me. I want to keep them all with me.
I know. Okay, so Jenny, tell us, what do you want the audience to come away from Meet Me at Christmas?
I think with all of my stories, the goal is I truly believe that happy endings can be real. And I believe there's magic in our lives if we just look for it, if we can get past the noise. And so, in my books, I just want people to know that, even though bad stuff happens to us, even though we have struggles and internal conflicts, we can find the magic if we just look close enough.
I love that. I absolutely love that. So I'm going to shift gears just a little bit, because here at Bookish Road Trip, we have 5,400 members they are book enthusiasts, but we also have a lot of writers, authors, and people who are kind of thinking about writing that first book. And it's so scary. And I would love to hear a little bit about your experience, Lindsay, because you are a debut 2023 author. Tell me a little bit about how you came up with this idea and then got it out into the world. And it's doing incredible, because, by the way, you got one of the best Kirkus reviews for this book. When I read it, I was blown away. And so tell us, how did you get here?
Well, I had been following Harpeth Road for about a year prior to submitting to Jenny, and she was on my list for sure to submit to. I just had to talk myself into doing it. It took quite a lot of self-talk and encouragement to say, just go ahead and do it. Let's just submit. And I had this manuscript. Like I said, it started as a summer book, and then I scratched that. I'm like, nope. Then I turned it into, a Christmas novel. And I literally wrote the first draft. I think I finished it. It was January of that year. I didn't submit it to Jenny, I think, until August or somewhere around there. I think it was, where are we now? I think it was was it 2021, Jenny? I can't remember. It was a year and a half ago. And it's hard. I mean, all the self, you criticize your own self, not even just worried about what's going to happen when you submit, and all the rejections and all the, so that just doing it was the biggest step for me. and just saying to myself, you can do this, even if the no's come back, because they do. Okay, you take it and you say, what can I do to improve? So I had to keep that mindset going. But here we are. And I remember when she asked for the full, I just remember that was an accomplishment in itself. I was like, even if she doesn't take it, she's going to read the whole thing. So the first 3 chapters, or so every little thing I had to, I could do this, I can do this. But I just remember crying when it was accepted, because, just following Harpeth Road, I just knew, I see their vision. I'm all about it. I was like, I could see myself there. So it was a lot of visualization, but it's really hard, in my opinion, to just get to that first step of submission. So, yeah.
So Jenny, by my count, I may be off by a book or two. You have written 22 books since 2013. Am I right on that?
Yes, and I've actually got one that's completely written and it edits, and I'm about 20,000 words in on the next one. I think I have 23 books, but I'm not sure on that.
So tell me how on earth, because I've written one book and the second one's almost finished, and it's taken me years to do this. I would love to know your secret, because not only are you writing full-time, you're a mother, you're a wife, and you also are a founder of a publishing company. So please tell us your secret. If you have a secret, I would love to have it.
Me too.
Coffee. No, I don't know. I mean, I think it goes back to what I was talking about when who are you, when you actually drill down. And I think for me, there are 2 versions of myself. I was a school teacher for 18 years when my first book was picked up. And I feel like that school teacher, Jenny, is a totally different person than the person I am now. Because once like Lindsay said, you're like self-talk, like I kept waiting for people to figure out. I had no idea what I was doing, and then after a while you settle into, I absolutely know what I'm doing. I know everything about what I'm doing. And then once you get there, I get so much done because I'm doing what I love. I get to play all day long. And so I think I just get stuff done because I literally work from the time I'm up, my mind is going at 6 a.m. until I fall into bed at 10. And I work the entire time. I mean, I do mom stuff and all the things too, but like I'm always in my head and I'm always working because it's the most fun I've ever had. So, and it just makes it easier for me. And I will say the books too, they get easier. And so what my book 24 is a lot easier to write than book 2. Book 2 and 3 were actually harder for me than book 1 because I had to do it again, and then I was like, now I don't know, like, I don't know, And so not only did I have to do it again, but I had like all this time to mess around with book 1 when no one was taking it. And I kept adding the feedback in. Whereas then once I was contracted, it was like, oh, when can you have book 2? And I had to have it ready, and I wasn't ready. I mean, to this day, I say I wasn't ready. I was blessed. I was coached like nothing, and so, once somebody sees your vision, and like Lindsay said, when you get there and you're like, this is the place I think fits me, that's when the magic happens. Because once you get that perfect fit, it just starts to roll, and then it's not quite as hard, and I had a perfect fit with my publishers as well. I just really love the publishing part.
Well, so. I love that. And so what's the next book? I'm sure there's a book coming out in like 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, I've got one coming out called The Golden Hour. And it's about a girl who is in college. Her mother passed away giving birth to her brother, and her brother is autistic. And she was the caregiver of her brother with her single dad. And he was the breadwinner and she was the caregiver. And her dad convinces her to go away to college. And in her second year of college, she gets a call that her dad has had a heart attack. And she has to leave school and come home to take care of her teenage brother. And it's their journey together and their journey in love, in all aspects of love, and how they get through that together. And that's coming out this summer. So like, I think June.
Sounds incredible. And Lindsay, what about you? What's going to be your sophomore novel?
No pressure. No.
No pressure. No pressure.
I know. I was writing it going, are they gonna like it like my first one? But I have to get past all that noise. My second one is called Fly Away Summer, and it's sort of an enemies to lovers trope. That was hard to write because you have to find that perfect moment where they start to mesh, and that was hard for me to figure out. But it's about my main gal. She is Lena, and the book starts out where she's in culinary school, and she gets a call from her grandfather, who's the only family she has left. She had lost her grandmother and her parents at a young age, so her grandfather was all she had left. He told her right in the middle of her finals, senior year, you need to come home. And she knew something was up, so she goes home and she finds out that they just lost her grandparents' family inn that they operated for over 40 years, that she was planned on taking over after she graduated culinary school. And he lost it in foreclosure, and she found out he was diagnosed with dementia. So he's going into a nursing home. She loses her family inn, which she has a lot of connection to, especially after losing her parents. And she finds out in that same meeting that her father's old tiny fish market that's on the property that they tried to sell, but they couldn't sell it. It's just sitting there, that is hers. And she's like, what am I going to do with this? And so she, the book starts out 5 years after that point, and she turned it into her restaurant. So she's a chef. Now I'm a prior nutritionist. And so I had a field day with all of the recipes. I'm like, oh, this is my dream here. And I actually worked with a fellow nutritionist and chef who gave me a lot of inspiration and ideas for a lot of the yummy, delicious food that you're going to read about in this novel. Well, the end goes back on sale, goes back up for sale 5 years later. She's like, this is my chance. My grandfather's in a nursing home. I'm going to buy it back for him. But it got swooped away by a developmental company who outbid her. And that's where the guy comes in, and his name is Hunter. And he's, city guy from New York City, comes in, buys this property. And because her restaurant is on the same property, she has to watch him like completely transform her beloved inn. But it's a story about how they come together, but it's also, there's a lot of parts with her grandfather who's, losing his memories, and how being with him inadvertently helps her face her past, because remembering the past was all he had left. His present memory was really going, but his long-term memory still was there. So Lena, sits with him, takes care of him, and without even realizing it was healing her, like through those moments with granddad. So, and letting the inn go. And it's just, that was hard. It was hard to figure out how to get her to be okay with such a big thing. But I love her. I love the food.
Well, both of these books sound incredible, and I cannot wait. And when does that one come out again, Lindsay?
I think it's May 2020. Yeah, so soon.
Well, I could absolutely talk to you guys all day, but we're gonna have to wrap this up. But I know our community, because we still have you until tomorrow. We're so excited. But our group, they're gonna want to follow you on your social media, your website. Jenny, where can they find you?
On Facebook, I'm Jenny Hale Author. Everywhere else, I'm at J Hale Author. And then Harpeth Road is just at Harpeth, HARPETH, Road, ROAD. And I run the Harpeth Road socials right now, which is really funny when Harpeth Road is like, at Jenny Hale is like the guy in
multiple personality.
I love your social media account. I mean, it's beautiful. It's stunning. You should absolutely follow them. So Lindsay, what about you? How can we follow you and keep up with you?
I'm author Lindsay Gibson on Instagram and on Facebook, and L Gibson author on I still say Twitter, X.
I do too.
Yeah, authorlindsaygibson.com is my website. So yeah, I'm everywhere.
And we have a lot of comments, and guys, we will get back to them. I'm sure Jenny and Lindsay, they'll go through them and keep asking, because a lot of people watch this on replay. Not everybody can be out, watching Facebook Live at noon on a Thursday. But I cannot thank you guys enough. This has been a wonderful week. And I just want to say to thank you to everyone who watches Author Take the Wheel. This has been my first year. This is number 12 for me. So I'm very excited. And I can't wait to have a 2024 coming up. And so until next time, thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.